Hi friends, it's time to read the next two chapters of Merlin Mission number 6, Season of the Sandstorms by Mary Pope Osborne. Chapter 5, Bandits. Jack looked around wildly. Dark figures on horses were galloping across the sand toward them. They were yelling and shouting. "Oh no," cried Jack, "what should we do?" "We will fight them off," said Mamoon. "You and Annie take this box and ride to the dunes." Mamoon pulled a flat wooden box out of one of his saddlebags. He thrust the box into Jack's hands. "Hurry, ride as fast as you can. Protect it with your lives." Jack frantically tried to stuff the box into his shoulder bag, but Mamoon slapped the back of Jack's camel and she bolted forward. The reins slipped from Jack's hands. He grabbed the saddle horn with one hand and clutched the wooden box to his chest with the other. He held on for his life as Beauty galloped across the dark desert. Annie's camel ran beside Jack's. Like two racehorses, Beauty and Cutie thundered across the sand toward the distant dunes. Rocking crazily from side to side, Jack clung to the box. "Slow down," he yelled, "please." It was no use. Beauty ran like the wind. She and her sister practically flew over the desert under the starry sky. Jack wanted the camels to stop, but at the same time, he wanted to get far away from the bandits. Finally, the camels began to slow their pace. Jack looked back. He couldn't see the caravan at all, and no one seemed to be following them. When the two camels reached the dunes, they began plodding around the steep hills. Once they were nestled safely between tall sand drifts, they stopped to rest. Beauty grunted. Cutie snorted. Thanks, girls," said Annie, panting. "I hope Mamoon and the others are safe from the bandits," said Jack. "Me too," said Annie. "What's in the box he gave us?" Jack held up the flat wooden box. "I don't know," he said, "but Mamoon said we should protect it with our lives." "Maybe it's a precious spice," said Annie. "I hope it's more than that," said Jack. "I'd hate to risk my life for cinnamon or pepper." "Should we look?" said Annie. "I don't know," said Jack. "Mamoon might not want us to." "But you don't think we could protect it better if we knew what it was?" Annie asked. "Maybe," said Jack. He could see Annie's point. "Okay." Jack tried to open the lid of the box, but he couldn't. In the dark, his fingers pressed against the keyhole. "Forget it," he said. "It's locked." "Shh, listen," said Annie. Jack listened. He heard a high-pitched moaning sound. It sounded like music from a violin. Wafting through the dry sand dunes, the haunting music grew louder. "What is that?" said Jack. "Uh-oh," said Annie. "Now I hear something else." Jack held his breath. He heard hooves galloping over the desert. "Bandits!" he said. "We have to hide the box," said Annie. "Where?" said Jack. "In the sand," said Annie. She clucked her tongue and Cutie knelt down to the ground. Beauty knelt down too. Jack and Annie jumped off their saddle cushions and started digging in the sand. The sound of hoofbeats grew louder and louder. Jack and Annie dug frantically. They threw sand behind them like puppies digging in the dirt. "That's deep enough," said Jack. He placed the box in the hole they had dug. Then he and Annie pushed piles of sand back on top of it. When they stood up, Annie gasped. "Look!" A dark figure on a camel was silhouetted against the starlit sky. The rider was winding his way through the dunes toward them. Jack's heart nearly pounded out of his chest. "Should we use a magic rhyme?" Annie asked. "We don't have time," said Jack. The rider drew closer until he stopped in front of Jack and Annie. "You are safe, no?" he said. "Mamoon," said Annie. Relief flooded through Jack. He laughed. "Yes, we're safe," he said, "and you're safe too." "My men fought well," said Mamoon. "The thieves fled with only a few bags of pepper and painted beads. And we kept your box safe too," said Annie proudly. She knelt and dug in the sand until she uncovered the wooden box. She handed it to Mamoon. "Ah, very good," the caravan leader said. "What's in the box?" asked Annie. "A priceless treasure," said Mamoon. "I've brought it all the way from Greece, and I am taking it to Baghdad. Thank you both for guarding it with your lives. You are very special." "Sure, no problem," said Jack. He still wondered what was in the box. Gold, silver, precious jewels? But Mamoon did not say. He put the box back into his camel's saddlebag. "Let us be on our way now," he said. Jack climbed on top of his kneeling camel. He clucked his tongue. He was surprised and pleased when Beauty rose up on her tall legs. "We will catch up with the others in Baghdad," said Mamoon. "If all goes well, we will arrive in the city in the afternoon. We must head east toward the morning sun." Mamoon rode out of the dunes. Jack and Annie followed him. As their camels rocked through the chilly dawn, daylight shimmered over the sand. "Mamoon, last night we heard strange sounds in the dunes," said Annie, "like music playing." "Ah, yes," said Mamoon, "the whistling sands." "What are the whistling sands?" asked Jack. "Some say it is magic," said Mamoon, "but I believe that all things in nature have their reasons. That is why I like the study of science. Science says we must observe our world. We must make experiments and try to find out why things happen. We have learned the whistling is made by sands settling in the drifts. Oh, said Annie, I'd hoped it was magic. Learning the reasons for things is magic, said Mamoon. True knowledge brings light to the world, and that is a magical thing, no? Yes, said Jack. Annie nodded thoughtfully. I guess when you put it that way, she said. Swaying from side to side on their camels, the three riders traveled toward the dawn. As the sun rose higher in the sky, the desert grew blazing hot. A dry wind whipped through the air, making sneaking patterns in the sand. Mamoon halted his camel. He looked around and frowned. What's wrong, said Jack. Are there signs of bandits? Mamoon shook his head. No, it is the desert itself that worries me now, he said. It is restless. He clucked his tongue, and his camel began walking again. As they rode over the restless desert, the wind picked up loose sand and tossed it into the air. Jack and Annie lowered their heads to keep the sand from blowing into their eyes. Their headcloths flapped in the wind. More and more sand started blowing. The desert seemed alive as the sand shifted and swirled. Mamoon stopped again and looked about. The stinky patterns in the sand were blowing into round, curly patterns. Jack heard a weird moaning sound. Is that the whistling sounds again, he asked hopefully. No, said Mamoon. That is the cry of a terrible sandstorm, and it will soon be upon us. Chapter 6, Sand Blasted. In the distance, a haze of sand was spreading over the desert. As the wind picked up, the sky turned red and the haze thickened into a brown cloud. The cloud began gliding toward Jack and Annie and Mamoon like a moving wall. Get down, lie on your bellies, ordered Mamoon. Quickly, cover your faces with your headcloths. Jack clucked his tongue. Beauty knelt to the ground. Jack, Annie, and Mamoon jumped off their camels and lay down in the sand beside them. Jack tried desperately to cover his face with his headcloth, but the raging wind kept whipping the cloth back from his hands. The sky turned from red to black. The moaning sound turned it into a loud rumbling. Jack looked up and saw the saddlebag off Mamoon's kneeling camel. The bag hit the ground and fell open. The box bounced out and tumbled away in the driving wind. The treasure, said Jack, but his voice was drowned out by the wind. He jumped up and bolted after the box. Jack raced across the desert as the sand battered his body. The wind tried to push him down, but Jack ran with all his might until finally he caught up with the box and threw himself down on top of it. He grabbed the ends of his headscarf and covered his face. The sandstorm blasted over Jack, sounding like the hoofbeats of 100 galloping camels. Jack's eyes burned. He felt as if he were suffocating. Slowly the thundering softened to a low rumbling. The rumbling faded to a moaning. The wind died down. The hot desert grew still and silent. Coughing, Jack rolled over and sat up. He had sand in his mouth, sand in his ears, and sand in his nose. He pulled off his glasses and rubbed his stinging eyes, but rubbing only made them worse. Blinking, Jack clutched the box and looked around for the others. The air was thick with dust. He had completely lost his sense of direction. Jack, Jack, he heard Annie shouting. Jack clutched the small wooden box and stood up. His legs were so wobbly he fell over. Annie, he croaked. Jack, she called through the dust, where are you? Here, he said. Where? Here. There you are, said Annie, stumbling out of the haze. Are you okay? I'm okay, croaked Jack. Are you? Yes, I ran after you, said Annie. Her voice was hoarse, too. I had to save the box, said Jack. Where's Mamoon? I don't know, said Annie. I don't think he saw us chase after the box. Mamoon! They shouted together. Mamoon! There was no answer. Peering through the sandy haze, Jack heard thumping sounds. He and Annie turned around. Their two camels were trotting toward them. Cutie, cried Annie. Beauty! Jack and Annie stumbled to their camels and grabbed their reins. Thank you for finding us, said Annie. Yeah, thanks, said Jack, patting Beauty. Mamoon, Annie called. Mamoon! He must have gone in the wrong direction to look for us, said Jack. If we don't find him, how will we get to Baghdad? And what will we do with his treasure, asked Annie. I don't know, said Jack. He held up the wooden box. Look, the top's broken, said Annie. She pointed to a long crack running down the lid of the box. I hope the treasure wasn't hurt, said Jack. Maybe we should check and see, said Annie. Jack took a deep breath. He still thought Mamoon might not want them to look inside the box, but his curiosity got the best of him. Okay, he said. I guess it wouldn't hurt to make sure it's all right. Jack pried apart the two pieces of wood and lifted them off. Inside the box was a book. A book, said Jack, surprised. He'd expected gold or jewels. He carefully lifted the book out of the box. It had a plain leather cover with no title on it. It doesn't look like a precious treasure, said Annie. Maybe the writing inside is the treasure, said Jack. Jack gently opened the book. Inside were pages of thick yellow paper. The pages were bound with stitching and covered with writing on both sides. The first page said, "The Writings of Aristotle." "Who is Aristotle?" said Annie, sounding out the name. "I don't know," said Jack. "I'll look him up in our research book." He unhooked his bag from the saddle horn. Sand covered the books inside. He pulled out the research book and brushed it off. Then he looked up Aristotle in the index. "Good, he's here," Jack said. He turned to the right page and read, "Aristotle lived in ancient Greece over 2,300 years ago. He is known as one of the greatest philosophers of all time. The word philosopher means lover of wisdom. Aristotle's works were introduced to the Western world by Arabs in the Middle Ages." "So Aristotle was a great lover of wisdom," said Annie. "I guess so," said Jack, "but I wonder why the book is such a treasure." "Wait a minute," said Annie. "Doesn't Merlin's note tell us that we have to help the Caliph of Baghdad spread wisdom to the world?" Jack caught his breath. "Yeah," he said, "and if this is a book of Aristotle's writings, it must be full of wisdom. We have to get this book to the Caliph. That's our mission for Merlin." "We better get going," said Annie. Jack and Annie pulled on the reins of their camels and clucked their tongues. Beauty and Cutie knelt in the sand, and Jack and Annie climbed on. Leaving the broken box behind, Jack carefully packed the ancient book of Aristotle's wisdom and the research book into his bag. Then he hung the bag from his saddle horn. "Which way?" said Annie. "Toward the rising sun in the east," said Jack. "That's what Mamoon said." "It's that way then," said Annie. She pointed toward a bright blur in the hazy sky. Jack and Annie's camels headed into the dusty, glaring sun. "Hey, we're following Merlin's second instruction now," said Annie. "Ride through the dust and hot morning light." "You're right," said Jack. As Jack and Annie kept traveling toward the east, the desert sand shimmered and sparkled with heat. The air cleared, but still they saw no sign of Mamoon. Jack looked down to shield his eyes from the burning sunlight. Exhausted, he closed his eyes. As Beauty swayed gently from side to side, Jack's head dropped forward. Suddenly, he heard Annie shout, "Look, Jack!" "What, Mamoon?" said Jack, jerking awake. "No, look," said Annie. In the distance, Jack saw the sunlit towers and domes shining against the clear blue sky. "Oh man," he whispered, "Baghdad!" Well, they've made it. Now will they go meet the Caliph? Where's Mamoon? We'll keep reading and find out next time. Bye, friends.